I guess the Gatehouse came to be on a number of levels, but one level was after a number of years of teaching here at Humber College, the students coming up, and after we'd have a discussion in class about child abuse and violence, and somebody would always want to go for a coffee. On one particular day, a young woman came up and said, "Could we go for a coffee?" And we did. Because there really isn't any place at that point in time to have intimate discussions about this kind of thing. So we had a coffee, and it was raining. And we just pulled in the driveway right here. And it was kind of like in a movie in a way, insofar as it was raining, I kept the windshield wipers going because I didn't want it to feel claustrophobic for her. And she was telling me this incredibly horrific story. And as she was speaking, each time the windshield wiper would go whoosh, and there was this house. And it was all boarded up, but it had holes in the ceiling. And I thought, for whatever reason, I thought, wouldn't that be neat if that house is fixed up and people like this young woman could come and tell their stories and get really strong. Like many people who've been abused, the house was abused and abandoned, neglected, and so we built the house. And it became a place for people to come and tell their stories about being abused as children, as adults, and to find their voice again and to get really, really strong. And that's what we've been doing for the last 10 years now. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 8,000 people have come through these doors. And then if you add to that family members that would be attached to that 8,000, that's a lot of people.
It's been a pretty lonely life until now, filled with fear and mistrust and isolation. I walked around feeling like a ghost or an alien for so long. The words people spoke didn't seem to resonate with me at all, and people's actions seemed strange at times bizarre.
Well, to be honest with you, when I was 6 years old, I stood in my windowsill contemplating whether I was going to jump out or not. Like, that's where my mind state was at that age.
Well, my experiences started in around the ages of 10 to 14, and around those ages, pre-teen, pre-puberty. And it really, little did I know at the time, shaped me at the time and for many years after emotionally, and wired me really in an incorrect way.
Lots of different feelings. It's still hard sometimes to accept what happened, and that time was lost in some ways, and it's like having something of great value that's been taken from you that you can never get back.
The abuse started off very early, probably I would say between 3 and 4 years old. So it was long-standing, and it was multiple abuse with multiple individuals in a sort of a religious type of a setting with elders of the church, in which I would be abused with other children, and you'd be forced to participate in that abuse by holding the other kids down.
I carried him from about the age of 8, and I didn't really understand what it was all about until about 2 years ago, when I hit the bottom, and I decided that I think I need some help here.
To know what it's like to be in a dark spot where you don't see any way out, and you try to reach out to people around you, but you're so disassociated that you can't. You can't feel them. They don't feel real. They feel like cardboard cutouts of people, and you want so much to have that void filled, but you can't. I just hope that people in that place can if they see that, this might help them find the right place for help, because there are places where you can get help.
The shame of it in families is still so bad that, oh, we'll slide it under the rug and no one will know. You can't do that. You've got to get out there. People have got to get out and say, stop it.
Pretty neat printer too, man.
Oh, thanks, buddy. What, Catholic? I don't know. I wasn't sure if I was gonna. I said I wrote. I don't know if I'm gonna.
In our culture, whether we like to say it or not, there is an attitude and a taboo that if you're a male, and particularly if you're an adult male, that somehow, if you've been abused as a child, you're supposed to get over it and forget about it. End of discussion. And you can see it in terms of what services are available for male adults are minimal at best. And so what we created here was a place where men could come together to meet, to talk, and get strong by hearing each other's resilience. This is a house of resilience. This is a place where people really demonstrate their inner strength. And so we really wanted to support that because it doesn't exist really in very many places around the world.
Because for these men, coming in through that door on the first night is the greatest act of courage and bravery that these gentlemen have taken. And so over the 15 weeks, it's a discussion about being able to understand that the shame was not something that they caused, that the pain that they felt was not pain that they imposed upon themselves, but that was done as a result of the act upon them. So men begin to start sharing this with other men in a way that's safe, that is open, and honorable at the same time, because of the honor of just sharing. So there's this tremendous trust that develops amongst the gentlemen, and the group then starts supporting each other.
Any human being, anybody who's ever been traumatized by abuse, I would say come and talk to these guys. Listen to what they got to tell you.
I started this process and I woke up in September, October, maybe even early November of 2006. And I knew something was awry. I knew I hadn't dealt with the sexual abuse. It was living me instead of me living. It's a big breath of fresh air, Art, to let go. It's a big, big breath of fresh air. Several breaths. My anger was beyond anger. It was a rage. I could feel it. I could feel it in my system, like blood rushing through me. And I didn't really recognize that, identify with that, until I stepped into the 15-week program at the Gatehouse and connected with the gentlemen, members of my group, and really began to understand how I felt in that rage and what it looked like to others as well. And that was eye-opening for me. And I found that once I was able to let go of that through the process, through the content of the material, and with help from the facilitators, a little bit of guidance of understanding the whys and the hows and all that, it's been a big breath of fresh air. Huge, huge breath of fresh air.
And Rich mentioned some of the other things that many of us have, like therapists and psychiatrists and doctors, and that's the very clinical side to this healing process. And there's a place for that, the medication, monitoring the medication. But I knew while I was in that process that there was something missing. And when I found out that the Gatehouse, that there was a group session and it was going to be with other men who were in the same situation, something in my gut told me that that's where I needed to be. And needing to be heard and understood and understand it myself, I knew it had to involve other men and in a safe place.